Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about data visualization with R by running through two examples. Data visualization is the graphic visualization of data, and it makes it much easier to see and understand trends in the data. A couple of weeks ago I learned some basic R skills using a quick course, and I'll put the link down below. So what is R? R is a language and environment for statistical computing and graphics. This just means that R is a great tool for data manipulation and visualization. I'm going to be coding with Rstudio today. So let's get started with an example. I'm first going to get some data from my Finder that I downloaded from the internet. It's a CSV file, and it's some data on the number of men and women taking STEM majors in 2014. As you can see, I'm finding it in my Finder, and it's right here. And I'm going to copy paste the name and put it into the brackets. And it shows up on the side there. That shows that R has registered it as a variable. I'm also going to be using the third-party library ggplot2, which makes it much easier to create graphs and other types of visualizations. Let's take a look at the data in Excel. As you can see, there's a few fields, but there's loads and loads of records, so it'd be hard for us to visualize this without R. Some of the fields are major category, and total, but the fields that I'll be most concerned with today are men and women, which are the number of men and women taking the specified major. So back to our code, and I'm going to use the structure function to see all the different fields of our data like we did in the Excel spreadsheet. And this function is quite useful if you have lots and lots of fields and you just want to see quickly what they are and what their types are and what some example data is. Now that we know what our data looks like, let's look at the ggplot function. The ggplot function, by definition, creates a new ggplot, which is just a nice visualization of our data. So let's create one. I'm going to get rid of the question mark so that we can actually run the function. And the first argument is data, and our data is the file. The next argument is aesthetics, and aesthetics are basically what's on the x and y coordinates. So for x, I'm going to put men, and for y, I'm going to put the number of women. And let's see what that does. And it does nothing. This is because we haven't added a layer to make it actually have a visualization. We've just told R what to do. So if we write geomPoint adds points to the graph so that we can actually see what's going on. And if you look at the plot, we have some points. And if most of the points are in the bottom half, this means that there are more subjects where men take it more than women do. That's quite interesting. We got a quick visualization in just a few lines of code. I can even add a line through this graph using geomSmooth. So yeah, you can see that the line is mostly in the bottom half, and that means that there are generally more men taking STEM majors than women. So I'm going to start with another example now, and as usual I'm going to get the data by reading a CSV file, and this time it's on carbon emissions by country from 1800 to 2014. Okay, so if we run this, it shows up in our environment, and we can open this file in Excel, and when we do that we can see that the first field is the country, and there's like 193 or so records, and the other fields are the year from 1800 to 2014, and that's a lot of numbers, but R will make it really easy for us to learn something from this data. Back to Rstudio, we can check out the structure of this data as well, and you can see there's a lot of fields, which is going to be a problem for us because we can only graph one field at a time as the x or y-axis. So if we try to plot this, obviously the data is the data, and the x-axis would be the country, but there's nothing that the y-axis can be. It can't be the year, and it also can't be the value because the value changes for every year. So instead of dealing with difficult data, I'm going to use a different package called Reshape2. So I'm going to load it into our library. And basically this will allow us to make our data more long instead of wide, so fewer fields and more records. And there's a handy function called the melt function, and you can see that it changed our data variable. If we check out the structure of data now, you can see that there's only 3 fields now instead of like 200. And so that's really nice. It's much easier to plot that. Okay, I don't really like the column names, so I'm going to use the call names method to change it. So we're just replacing it with country, year, and value because it's much easier to understand instead of variable. So now if we check out the structure, you can see that it says country, year, and value, which is much better. And now we're going to try to plot it. So the data is obviously the data, and the x-coordinate is going to be the year, because we want to see a progression by year. And the y is the value. And I'm going to add geom_point to make it so that there are points on my graph. If we graph this, we see all the points for all the countries from 1800 to 2014. And the y-axis is the number, well, the amount of carbon emissions they had. And you can see overall it goes up. But it's not very useful because we might want to see a visualization by country. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a filter, and this filter is going to let us filter by country. So I'm going to filter where the data country is equal to, let's say, the United States. And that's registered as a new variable. But this won't exactly work because the data type of country is character, but we want it to be a factor. So I'm just going to save it as a factor, which will let us use the filter. And now we can make a new data set with our filter. So I'm going to create a data set called filtered, which is basically all the rows in my table where the country is equal to the United States. So out of this we'll get all the data from 1800 to 2014 for the United States only. And now I'm going to copy paste the old ggplot function, and instead of using data, I'm going to use filtered. Oh, this doesn't work because we haven't run filtered, so now it's part of our environment, and if we plot it, we get just the data for the United States. And obviously it's gone up over the years, but recently it might have come down a little bit. What's exciting about filters is you can add like more than one filter to it and it'll all work. So I'm going to add another country. So country equals, let's say, United Kingdom. And I'm going to make the color equal to country so we can actually differentiate between the two. If we run this, we get a nice visualization with two colors. The steeper one is the US, and this one, the pink one, is the UK. And we can note that the UK's curve is much less steep in recent years than the US, and the US's curve is increasing exponentially. So we can add another country. This time I'm going to add Canada. And when we run everything, we get to see 3 countries in the same graph with nice colors. And you can see that Canada has a very similar pattern to the US, just a little bit smaller in terms of carbon emissions, but the UK seems to have its own pattern, which is interesting. It's most likely because the UK had a different rate of industrialization than America and Canada. If we go back into our filter, you can change Canada into pretty much any country. So I changed it to Germany, and if we run everything again, you can see that Germany actually takes a similar path to London towards the end, but it's more similar to the US in the beginning, which is quite interesting. I'm not sure how to explain that, but you could do some research and find out. So that's the video on like a little intro to R. If you're into data science, I highly recommend it. I learned these skills in just a couple of weeks, and it's very fun. Data can be used to explain a lot of things in this world, and you can find loads of CSV datasets online and use R to easily create nice visualizations of it. I hope you try something new, and see you in the next one.